Good morning. This is Father Stephen Kelly from St. John's Church in Detroit. We are continuing our series of daily morning meditations where we generally look at one or another lessons that are assigned for morning or evening prayer, what is known as the Daily Office Lectionary. And before we jump into taking a look at the lesson that's assigned from the Daily Office, I do want to wish you a blessed feast of St. Francis of Assisi. Today, Monday, October 4th, is his feast day. And St. Francis was certainly an amazing saint, a unique vocation compared to anybody else who had come before or after, although many people have tried to imitate him. St. Francis lived in the 13th century, and as we know, he's the founder of the Franciscan order, those brown robe friars. One of Francis's great emphases is on poverty. He felt that by living in absolute poverty, by go and sell all that you have and give to the poor and come and follow me, that what Jesus told the rich young man was a way of life that he and others could follow in order to achieve perfection. Nobody has ever really done it quite like Francis, although the Franciscans certainly desire after that sort of charism that Francis had. Nobody's been able to imitate what Francis was able to do. And of course, one of the things that we all remember is the blessing of pets, and we know that Francis did in fact preach to the birds and tamed a wild wolf. That's part of where his reputation about animals comes from. But more importantly, Francis was a biblical literate who, once he read something in the scriptures, he tried to live it. Go and sell all that you have and give to the poor and come and follow me. Boom, that's what Francis did as a way of life. He don't have two tunics, right? Don't carry an extra pair of shoes, no money, all those things. He followed those counsels that were given to individual people in the scriptures and tried to live them with his immediate group of followers in order to obtain perfection and to share the love of God in Jesus Christ. And so we do admire Francis today. As the Episcopal Church's Book of Lesser Feasts and Fasts says about Francis, he is perhaps one of the most admired and least imitated of the saints. And I would say that's absolutely true, but we thank God for his holy example. Today I thought we'd take a quick look at the feast, at the lesson that's assigned for the letter of St. James. Remember, we've jumped into that now for our epistle for the daily office, and we're on chapter 1, beginning at verse number 12. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. Do not err, my beloved brethren. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. Of his own will begat he us with the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. Wherefore, lay apart all filthiness and superfluity of naughtiness, and receive with meekness the engrafted word, which is able to save your souls. Again, as I've mentioned about St. James before, his letter is just no nonsense, right to the point, common sense stuff. I remember when I first came back to the practice of the faith and was reading the daily office, man, that letter from St. James just hit me right in the feels when I was relatively newly sober and also new back to the practice of the faith. St. James spoke to me. So first of all, many of us want to blame God on our temptations, and God certainly permits them to happen. But the reality is, James points out, boy, it's your sin, right? When you allow yourself to waddle in your sin and go with it, that's when all this stuff happens, right? The temptation comes because you're not repenting right away and asking God for the grace to avoid them. And the other hand of that, of course, is that everything that's good is, in fact, a gift from God. And so our job is to be quiet, to listen, right? Slow to speak, swift to hear, and more importantly, slow to wrath. In other words, don't allow ourselves to get so caught up and angry at all these things, because the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. If we're doing things according to wrath, we are not going to be able to achieve anything to the greater glory of God. There are things we should certainly not be happy about. Injustices should be dealt with, but when we try to do things with wrath, and when we try to force and mete out a punishment which may only belong to God, it's not going to bring anything good for the kingdom and for his greater glory. So what do? Well, we have to lay aside all filthiness and superfluidity of naughtiness, which is a fun phrase to say. In other words, all of those things that would draw us into the sin that leads us away from God, we need to put it away. We need to be away from all of that. And in other words, just receive in our hearts the good news of God in Jesus Christ, the engrafted Word, Jesus himself being ultimately the Word, the Logos. And it is he, Jesus Christ, the Word, who is able to save our souls. Today's Monday, 12:15 Holy Communion, and of course, 5 o'clock evening prayer. And I hope you can join us in person. If not, we'll see you online at stjohnsdetroit.org. And may God bless you with a wonderful and holy feast of St. Francis.